Hey guys, Metal Driver here, back with another WWE Elite review, and today I'll be looking at the Legends Series 15, Kane. On the side you get an image of Kane, then on the back you get another image, the titles he's won, a description of this figure, and the rest of the figures that are in this wave. Alright, so that was the box, so without further ado, let's go ahead and open this up and take a closer look at Kane. And here is the big red machine out of the packaging, but before we take a look at the figure, let's look at the accessories that he comes with. He comes with a pair of gripping hands, one gloved, one is not. And the gloved one is painted well for the most part. It could have used an extra coat of flesh tone paint here, but aside from that, it looks pretty good. And then the other accessory he comes with is the World Tag Team Championship belt. Now, during the Ruthless Aggression era, this was exclusive to Raw. The SmackDown version was called the WWE Tag Team Championship belt, and that had a little bit of blue on it. Now, I did want to compare that with another World Tag Team belt. Now, the one on the bottom, I believe that came with one of the championship belt packs. This one on top is the one that came with Kane, and the new one is slightly different. The size of the belt is a little bit longer than the previous one. And then the other noticeable difference is that on the side plates, on the previous version of the belt, you have this black detail behind this silhouette of the two wrestlers, whereas on the new one, it's just all gold. I just wanted to show that off, but the details on the belt looks nice. It is pretty cool that we get this with Kane, because we don't often get this version of the tag team belt, so if you missed out on having this in your collection, now you can have this and add it. Then taking a look at the head sculpt, and oh man, this looks good. And I'm not being sarcastic at all. This actually looks really good. I think Mattel did a phenomenal job with this head scan. The details on the mask looks pretty solid, the paint looks pretty good, and the thing that looks the best in my opinion is that exposed mouth area looks exactly like how Kane looked in this time period. In fact, the whole mask, the whole head sculpt, the whole face just looks exactly like Kane. You put this next to an image of 2003 Kane and it looks spot on in my opinion. I think Mattel did a fantastic job with this, and they've been releasing some pretty good head scans this year, but this one is really good. Comparing that with the Decade of Domination Kane that we previously got, the two head sculpts, night and day difference. Obviously, the previous Kane, the mask is removable, so it's not going to look as smooth as far as the mask over the face, but you can easily see that this new one looks fantastic. Looking at the sculpting of the hair, that is brand new. It's nice and long. I like how this hair turned out. It looks very flat, which it should look, as Kane usually would have his hair wet during this time, so it would drape down in this fashion. So yeah, putting that next to the previous head with that hair, the new Kane, it just looks way better. Then taking a look at the upper body, it is the same one as the previous Kane. It does have a little more detail on the paint applications, specifically here on the black straps. That's actually fully painted, whereas the previous one was missing paint on those black straps. So it's nice that they fixed that. The line work looks really good. There's some spots here and there where they could have used an extra coat of red paint, but overall it looks nice, and the belt right here is painted below the waist swivel, whereas on the previous one was painted above the waist swivel, so I like how it looks on the new one. The back is painted pretty well, so that looks nice. And then I did want to mention that the cut at the joint by the shoulder is actually bigger. So looking at the previous Kane, you can see the difference there. So the new cut is going to allow for a wider range of motion, which we will see in the articulation portion. He's got black elbow pads. There are double jointed elbows underneath. You can't see it though, but it is there. He does feature these open gestured hands, so that way you can do his Kane pyro pose. I do believe these are the Randy Orton hands, and they do look a little bit weird on Kane's forearm because they look tiny. So, I mean, it would have been nice if they had scaled it and made it look a little bit bigger, but I mean, it's fine. It's not the worst thing, it just looks kind of, just kind of weird. Paint is good on the gloved portion of the hand. Then look at the left hand, he's got his wristband painted pretty well, looks good. Now this hand, for some reason, I don't know, it doesn't look as small as this one. Something about this hand on this form is kind of throwing me off. It's probably just me. And then looking at the lower body, it is very similar to the previous Kane. He's got these red and black straps on the right leg, painted a bit different. On the previous Kane, they were a lot closer together, whereas this one, it's a little bit more separated. Also, the paint detail on the side here that's supposed to mimic that mesh design, it is different than the previous one. This one had it right here above the knee. Same thing on this side, whereas the new Kane has a different pattern, so that's nice, it's a bit different. And then the coolest thing about this Kane, is that they gave him knee pads. The previous Kane did not have that, and neither did the ringside exclusive one. I don't think that one had knee pads. Unfortunately, I don't have that figure, so I can't compare it, but I like that we got it with this Kane. Detail on the knee pads look good, nicely done. And then his boots are exactly the same as the previous Kane. I don't really see any difference. Here you can see the red lines are painted well, the silver buttons here are painted well. They look good on both sides, so nicely done there. Then going over the articulation, the head is on a ball joint. It looks that high up, goes that far down, can turn side to side and tilt pretty well. As I mentioned with the shoulder, it has a larger cut at the hinge, so it goes really high up, so much better range than the previous Kane, as you can see. It rotates all the way around. There is a bicep swivel, double jointed elbows. It is hindered a bit by this elbow pad, but he still does get a better range of motion because of the double jointed elbow than the previous Kane, so that's really nice. A swivel and hinge at the wrist. Again, that hand just looks too small in that forearm. He crunches that far forward, that far back, so actually really not back at all. Waist swivel, legs go that far out, they go that high up. A thigh cut, double jointed knees, rotation at the top of the boot. Ankle goes that high up, it was a bit stiff on mine, that far down, and he has some pretty good ankle pivot. Alright, here is the new Legends Kane next to the Decade of Domination Kane. And looking at both arms, the new Kane has bigger, thicker arms, which I know a lot of collectors have been asking for. So I know a common complaint with a lot of the Kane figures is that the arms were too skinny. So I'm happy to report that these ones are bigger. Although I do believe that Kane's arms were a little bit more leaner during this time period. They weren't as thick and beefy as his arms during the Attitude Era, but regardless, it is still nice that we have bigger, thicker arms for Kane. Then here he is next to the Ultimate Edition Attitude Era Kane figure. And then finally, here he is next to a couple of his tag team partners, the Hurricane. And finally, Rob Van Dam. Alright, so what are my final thoughts on the new Legends Series 15 Kane? Well, if you haven't guessed it already, I absolutely love this figure. I think Mattel hit a home run with this. He looks absolutely fantastic. The head sculpt is spot on. The added details to the attire, even though they're minor, they do push this figure to make it look better than the previous one. He's got the knee pads, which the old one does not have. Honestly, the only minor complaint I could say is that the open hands look a bit on the small side, specifically the gloved one. Maybe if they could have been just slightly bigger, that would have been better. But aside from that, just this figure is great. Fantastic. This figure is awesome. Do I think this is the best Kane figure ever? I like the Ultimate one slightly better because the Ultimate one is based on a more iconic look, and I do prefer Ultimate Editions over Elites. But I can safely say that this is, in my opinion, the best Elite Kane ever made. So out of all the Elite Kanes, this is my favorite one. So if you see it in stores, I would say pick it up. Don't miss out on this. The only sucky thing is that, unfortunately, this is a Target exclusive. So pretty much a US exclusive. Now, I don't know if this is going to appear in Toys R Us up in Canada. I know they've gotten some of the Legends series figures, so hopefully it does show up there. I don't know if there's a store overseas outside of North America that carries the Legends figures. I hope so, because I've said it many times. I hate store exclusives. I don't think it's fair to the collectors, especially the ones that live outside the US. They don't get to see these at retail price. So if you are an international collector and you're able to find this at a reasonable price online, pick it up because I think it is absolutely worth it and a must-have in your collection. So if you haven't done so already, like this video and subscribe. If you want a chance to get a shout out in the next video, leave a comment down below. Just like David Lucas said on the Shawn Michaels Fan Takeover review, best Shawn Michaels figure ever, 10 out of 10 for me. Hey, I'm not going to argue against that because that is a great figure. I think 10 out of 10 is a pretty accurate score for that Shawn Michaels. Check me out on my social media so you can be up to date with all my wrestling figure photography, and I'll see you next time.